On December 1st, 2011, at the Krannert building, presidential historian Richard Norton Smith gave a talk entitled, "Choosing a President, What History Tells Us."
But how then do you define character? Lincoln, as usual, had a pithy formulation. Character, he said, is like a tree, and reputation like its shadow. The shadow is what we think of it. The tree is the real thing. Consider the tree of conviction. It goes without saying that we want our presidents to be men of principle. What happens, however, when principles come into conflict with one another? Thomas Jefferson, to cite one example, worshipped before the altar of strict constructionism, if no other. Yet history reveres him for putting aside his deepest convictions about limited government when Louisiana came on the market. Jefferson himself acknowledged, he said, "I stretched the Constitution so far it cracked." More precisely, Jefferson's constitutional principles took a back seat to his continental vision of the United States. Most people think it's a good thing they did. Presumably that includes most people who live in Indiana.
I thought the presentation was great. The way he was able to relate history and talk about the presidency was awesome. He gave very detailed and specific facts that were great. He was just able to bring the history alive in a way that was very entertaining.
I thought he was an amazing storyteller. He has a way of relating what's going on currently, relating it to what's going on or what has happened in the past. I've actually heard him speak last May. I went on the Maymaster to Washington, D.C., and we met 72 different people, in the White House, the State Department. He was by far and large my favorite person to listen to. It's amazing how he can remember all the dates and these people, and it's fascinating, really.
Yeah, I learned about just the public's misconception of some of the past presidents. He talked about Herbert Hoover on how the public looks at him as a bad president, but in reality he was one of the most morally justified, or he had one of the best characters that the Oval Office has seen.
I did. I learned about some presidents that I didn't know very much about, like Hoover and Eisenhower and Harding. I think he really makes things. He tells things in a way that everyone understands, and you learn things you never know about. And he has a way of telling you that it's almost story-like.
So what about 2012? If history is any guide, we ought to be looking for a principled pragmatist with a firm grip on the national interest and the confidence that comes from having been tested. He or she should be able to laugh at oneself and at the absurdities and inflated egos of public life. Like Jefferson and Truman, the next president should be able to adapt to the unforeseen. If not a visionary per se, he should have vision. In TR's robust formula, he should keep his feet on the ground and his eyes on the stars. He ought to like and care about his fellow creatures far more than the trappings of office. We can all breathe easier if a president knows who he is, where he comes from, and to where inevitably he will return.